In the previous episode, we saw the Sword Saint ask Leping about the true meaning behind the Tai Chi sword and how she could improve. Leping, with a serious expression, replied, "Actually, I almost forgot." The Sword Saint was stunned, asking in disbelief, "He forgot?" Leping scratched his head and told the Sword Saint, "But Miss Chi-Chi, if you want to learn swordsmanship, I would suggest going to the Sword Saint Guild." Upon hearing this, the Sword Saint was taken aback, retreating in shock. Everyone around them was equally astonished, thinking, "He's advising the Sword Saint to go to the Sword Saint Guild to learn swordsmanship? How horrifying and heartbreaking," Elif thought. Such a cruel and merciless response. Annie was equally surprised, thinking, "The Sword Saint is so pitiful." The Sword Saint, her entire body trembling, asked, "What do you mean go to the Sword Saint Guild to study? Does this mean, in the hero's eyes, my swordsmanship is that bad?" She was filled with self-doubt, thinking, "I taught the Sword Saint Guild all their swordsmanship, so what is the hero trying to say?" Leping, seeing her distress, said, "That's not what I meant. How should I put it? The thing that impressed me most about the Tai Chi sword was the final move, swordless form." He explained further, "Wasn't something like the swordless form used by a Sword Saint Guild member during the guild competition in Tatano Town? It's just that I don't have magic, so I can't condense that kind of magic sword energy." He paused and continued, "So, I guess it's pretty much the same, like this, right?" With that, Leping pointed two fingers towards the Sword Saint, showing her the essence of the swordless form. In that instant, the Sword Saint's soul seemed to detach from her body, drifting into the clouds. The light was so intense that she closed her eyes. When she opened them, she found herself on a floating island surrounded by clouds and mountains. Stunned, she noticed a castle in the distance, perched on the floating island. As she wondered how to reach it, a flying sword appeared beneath her feet. She landed on the sword, and it carried her toward the island. Upon reaching the floating island, she saw children practicing their sword skills. The Sword Saint was confused, wondering, "What kind of place is this?" It wasn't just children practicing swordsmanship. There was also an elderly man who appeared to be a Taoist master. The old man instructed the children to attack the Sword Saint. She was taken by surprise as the children overwhelmed and defeated her in an instant. Shocked, the Sword Saint wondered, what just happened? In the blink of an eye, she found herself becoming one of the old man's disciples, practicing swordsmanship alongside the children. She trained relentlessly, calming her mind under the waterfall. Yet each time she challenged the children again, she was defeated. Time passed. Autumn arrived, and she challenged them again, only to be defeated once more. Winter came, and she faced them again, still unable to win. After countless attempts, the old man called her over and offered her some tea. As she drank, memories came flooding back. "I came here to learn the Tai Chi swordless form." Looking at the cup of tea in her hand, realization dawned on her. She closed her eyes, began practicing Tai Chi, and focused deeply on feeling the essence of the sword. However, she pushed herself too hard and suffered an internal injury. Confused, she wondered, "What am I doing wrong?" Then, it clicked. She needed to let go of the sword itself. She began practicing without holding the sword, focusing on feeling the air, water, and her surroundings. She sought to understand the nature of swordsmanship, not through force, but through connection with the elements around her. Striving to grasp the true essence of the swordless form, she became so focused on her training that she lost awareness of her surroundings. Years passed, and with time, she mastered countless swordsmanship techniques. The young boys who once easily defeated her were no longer her match. The old man, her teacher, offered her some tea and asked gently, "Have you learned the way of Tai Chi?" The Sword Saint, confused, asked, "Master, what do you mean by Tai Chi? Did I come here to learn Tai Chi? I had forgotten." The old man looked at her with kindness and replied, "It is time for you to return." Surprised, the Sword Saint asked, "What do you mean by return?" Without answering directly, the old man reminded her, "Forget yourself and become one with nature. Do not seek to control the Tai Chi, but rather, let it integrate with you." The Sword Saint nodded in understanding. "I see. I cannot repay you for this enlightenment, but I beg you, please tell me your identity and name. I will always hold you in my heart with the utmost respect." The old man smiled and said, "My identity is unimportant, but if you wish to know, my name is Zhang Sanfeng." As the sword saint returned to reality, the old man remained behind, feeling a sense of loneliness. Who will come next? He wondered. Meanwhile, Lei Ping was in shock as he watched the sword saint floating in the air. What happened?" he stammered, barely believing what he saw. The sword saint, after her profound experience with Tai Chi, had broken through and achieved the status of a 4-star demon king. Annie, stunned, exclaimed, "Big brother Le Ping helped the sword saint, no, Senior Chi-Chi, break through 3 levels." Elif and Uncle Boss were equally shocked. 3 breakthroughs in a row? Elif murmured. "This is the level of the demon king. It's incredible. Maybe in Sir Le Ping's eyes, these levels are insignificant." The sword saint descended gracefully and bowed before Le Ping, thanking him for his guidance. "I, Chi-Chi Saugus, have realized my mistakes. I will follow your instructions, brave hero, and return to the Sword Saint Guild to start from scratch. I will no longer obsess over swordsmanship, but will devote myself fully to Tai Chi." With these words, she left. Le Ping, watching her depart, called after her, "We will meet again someday." However, thought to herself, perhaps it's because my level is still too low. But the truly powerful people in this world are so unpredictable. After Chi-Chi left, Le Ping turned to Annie and Uncle Boss. "What are your plans now? Would you like Elizabeth to teleport you somewhere?" Elif answered first. "I don't know much about the elf tribe, so I'd like to stay here and gradually get familiar with it." Uncle Boss chimed in, "I've decided to move the Card Guild's headquarters to the elf tribe and help manage it from there." Annie, feeling a bit unsteady, said, "I'm still dizzy from teleporting, so I think I'll take a puppet ride back on my own. Thank you for your care, big brother Le Ping. I've also decided to go somewhere else." Le Ping smiled at them and said, "Since you all have your own plans, Elizabeth and I will head back first." Elizabeth, still disappointed with herself after witnessing Le Ping's magic regression, remained quiet. Le Ping comforted her. "Don't worry, Elizabeth. It's time to go home." Elizabeth nodded and summoned a teleportation circle. In moments they were back at Le Ping's house. Meanwhile, as the Sword Saint was making her way back to the Sword Saint Guild, she noticed something unusual in the desert. 2 men were locked in fierce combat with an imposing figure. Recognizing them, she realized they were members of the Sword Saint Guild, Elder Sword Bali and Grey Sword Ash. Grey Sword Ash, panting heavily, called out to Elder Sword Bali, "No wonder a giant Bear Guild member transformed into an apostle during the last guild competition. It all makes sense now." Elder Sword Bali, focused on the fight, nodded in agreement. "I didn't think those straightforward beasts would degenerate to this extent." The one they were fighting was no ordinary opponent. He was a demon of the Dark Guild, one of the 6 pillars, known as Faradzadag Samawi, a 1-star demon lord and former president of the Giant Bear Guild. Faradzadag Samawi, looming over them, sneered. "Simple and straightforward, huh? Is that how you humans see us? Ha ha ha. No wonder the beasts have never risen to become a major force." Without hesitation, Faradzadag Samawi leaped into the air, preparing to launch a powerful attack. He unleashed his full strength, using muscle release 100%, but both Elder Sword Bali and Grey Sword Ash managed to dodge just in time. Grey Sword Ash, catching his breath, turned to Elder Sword Bali. "This opponent is at the level of a demon lord. What should we do, Elder Bali?" Elder Sword Bali's expression remained calm. "Don't underestimate yourself, Ash. Remember, after drinking the barley tea our Sword Saint Guild acquired, you too reached the level of demon lord. Now let's bring him down." Without further delay, Elder Sword Bali activated his skill, Flashing Needle, sending swift, precise strikes that restricted Faradzadag Samawi's movements. Grey Sword Ash quickly seized the moment, combining his sealing techniques, seal, metal, seal, water, and seal, soil, to form his ultimate technique. Using these elements he created a massive concrete casing that encased Faradzadag Samawi's entire body. Wasting no time, Grey Sword Ash charged forward, wielding 2 metal rods as if they were swords. He thrust them into Faradzadag Samawi's encased form, initiating his attack, Blunt swordsmanship, vibration. The vibrations caused the concrete to tighten around Farazadog Samawi, his body starting to crack under the pressure. But Grey Sword Ash knew this wasn't enough to defeat a demon lord. Summoning all his strength, he amplified the power of the vibrations to their maximum, intensifying the crushing force around Farazadog Samawi's body. With a final surge of power, the cement casing began to compress further, and Farazadog Samawi's body groaned under the pressure. However, Grey Sword Ash didn't let up, determined to see the battle through to its end. As Grey Sword Ash's vibration technique intensified, the very ground beneath them began to tremble. Farazadog Samawi cried out in pain, but Grey Sword Ash did not relent. Determined to ensure the Demon Lord's defeat, he pushed harder, amplifying the vibrations to their maximum. Elder Sword Bali watched from the side, nodding approvingly. Among the 10 colored swords, I've always had the highest hopes for you. You may not have the sharpness of the blue sword, but your persistence and hard work, combined with your unique blunt swordsmanship, are admirable. Moments later, Grey Sword Ash's vibration technique came to a halt, and he ensured that Farazadog Samawi was completely sealed in the concrete. Elder Sword Bali praised him, saying, "Good job. As I said, as long as you believe in yourself, you'll soon surpass Blue Sword." Grey Sword Ash humbly responded, "Thank you, Elder Bali. I've never aimed to surpass anyone. I simply want to do my best, step by step." However, their victory was short-lived. Suddenly, Farazadog Samawi broke free from the concrete that encased him. Both Grey Sword Ash and Elder Sword Bali stood in shock as the Demon Lord emerged unscathed. "Elder Bali, do you feel that ominous aura?" Grey Sword Ash asked fearfully. Elder Sword Bali quickly regained his composure. "Don't panic. Use all your magic power and activate the sword shield now." Both Grey Sword Ash and Elder Sword Bali summoned all their magic and activated the triple sword shield technique, a powerful defense designed to block even the strongest of attacks. But as the dust began to clear, Farazadog Samawi casually flicked his hand, sending a single, devastating blow that shattered their shield with ease. The attack was so powerful that it not only destroyed their technique, but also left both Elder Sword Bali and Grey Sword Ash severely wounded, lying unconscious on the ground. Farazadog Samawi, now fully awakened as a first-star demon king, laughed maniacally. "The dark gear is just a transitional tool. Only the chaotic power of the Dark Sea is truly limitless. Everyone below the Demon King is nothing more than an ant. I've likely surpassed even Lord Malfoy in power now." Just as Farazadog Samawi prepared to unleash his dark energy to finish off the injured swordsman, the Sword Saint appeared from above, splitting his body in two with a swift and precise strike before he could react. As Elder Sword Bali slowly regained consciousness, he opened his eyes to see the Sword Saint standing before him. "Why are you here?" the Sword Saint asked, her tone stern. "Weren't you ordered to guard the guild headquarters?" Elder Sword Bali, still recovering, explained, "I brought Grey South to investigate a small nation, hoping to find something that could help us combat the Dark Guild. As for the guild, under my command, they are successfully repelling the Dark Guild's attacks." The 10 colored swords were sent to various parts of the demon realm to gather information. But apart from the elf tribe, there's no trace of any so-called small nation in the entire southern region. "I've been tricked by those 3, damn it." The Sword Saint glanced at him and said, "It doesn't matter now. I'll take you back to the guild. Once we return, please gather everyone immediately. I have something important to announce." Meanwhile, in the demon realm, deep within a goblin cave, a party of adventurers was cautiously exploring. The yellow-cloaked mentor warned Green Sword, "I've heard the goblins here are completely different from the ones outside. They've had no contact with the outside world and are said to be primitive and unreasonable barbarians." Green Sword, unfazed, reassured him, "Don't worry, you've got me, the Green Sword, with you this time. And not just me, but Sir Travi as well. If the goblins are barbaric, we'll handle them." Travi, a pink-haired elf, smirked. "If I weren't repaying a favor to your Sword Saint Guild, I wouldn't have teamed up with you. You're the ones who have the advantage here." A blue-haired girl in the group shuddered. "Unreasonable barbarians? That sounds terrifying." The yellow mentor sighed. "If it weren't for the lack of competitions recently, I wouldn't even be taking on bounty missions." Sure, it's profitable. But I'm risking my life here. It's not the same as selling tickets. Green Sword, noticing the blue-haired girl's anxiety, smiled and patted her on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Suddenly, the blue-haired girl gasped. The magic gem is reacting strongly. A large number of life forms are approaching us.